There's a subtle, almost imperceptible force that guides more of our lives than we dare to admit. A silent architect shaping our paths, often without our conscious consent. It's not an external enemy, nor a visible obstacle, but an ancient whisper from within. A primal instinct designed for survival that, in the complex tapestry of modern existence, has become a master of disguise. I'm talking about fear. Not the immediate, heart-pounding terror of a sudden threat, but the insidious, quiet dread, the persistent hum of apprehension that subtly nudges our hands away from the unknown, that convinces us to stay in the familiar, even when the familiar is slowly suffocating us. Have you ever felt that invisible pull, that inexplicable hesitation at the brink of a new opportunity, or the gnawing regret of a path not taken, a word unsaid, a dream abandoned, all because of a feeling you couldn't quite name, yet couldn't quite escape? What if I told you that in those moments, it wasn't you making the decision, but fear itself, wielding a quiet, almost manipulative influence over your very destiny? Imagine your life as a grand, sprawling map, filled with countless roads. Some are paved and well lit, others winding and shrouded in mist. Still others barely discernible trails leading into vast, uncharted wilderness. Every day, every hour, you stand at different intersections, contemplating which path to take. And there, standing beside you, is this unseen companion, fear. It doesn't always shout. Often, it just leans in close and whispers. It speaks of what if, of worst-case scenarios, of comfort and safety, of avoiding pain and preserving the fragile illusion of control. It cleverly masquerades as prudence, as caution, as wisdom, convincing us that the safest choice is always the best choice, even if that safety comes at the expense of growth, joy, and true fulfillment. The darker truth is that we are, far more often than we realize, outsourcing our agency, allowing this primal guardian to steer the ship of our lives from the shadows, making choices that shrink our world rather than expand it. This isn't to say that all fear is inherently bad. Fear, in its purest form, is a magnificent survival mechanism. It's the jolt that pulls your hand from a hot stove, the instinct that makes you slam on the brakes to avoid an accident. It's the ancient voice that saved our ancestors from predators and natural disasters. But in the nuanced landscape of human relationships, career choices, personal growth, and creative expression, that same primal instinct, left unchecked, can become a profound disservice. It morphs into a fear of failure, a fear of judgment, a fear of rejection, a fear of vulnerability, a fear of change, or even, most subtly, a fear of success and the unknown responsibilities it might bring. These are not threats to our physical survival, but rather threats to our ego, to our comfort zones, to the carefully constructed narratives of who we believe ourselves to be. Think of the dream deferred, the novel never started, the business idea left on a napkin, the passionate hobby that remained just a thought. Was it a lack of talent? A shortage of time? Or was it the insidious whisper of fear? Fear of the blank page. Fear of public scrutiny. Fear of financial ruin. Fear of the effort required. And the devastating possibility that despite all that effort, it might still not be good enough. So, we choose not to begin. We choose the comfort of the status quo, the safety of what if over the terrifying reality of what is. We rationalize our inaction, calling it practicality, responsibility, or simply a lack of opportunity. But deep down, a quiet ache persists, a haunting melody of what could have been, a life unlived, a potential unexplored. All because fear, cloaked in logic, made the decision for us. And what about the relationships we never truly forged, or the ones we let wither? Fear of intimacy, born from past hurts, can subtly dictate our behavior, causing us to push people away when they get too close, to avoid vulnerability, to keep emotional walls perpetually high. Fear of conflict might lead us to avoid difficult but necessary conversations, allowing resentment to fester until the bond breaks under the pressure of unspoken truths. Fear of loneliness might trap us in relationships that are unfulfilling, simply because the alternative, the terrifying uncertainty of being alone, feels far worse. In these intricate dances of human connection, fear doesn't just make a decision. It choreographs entire painful routines, keeping us perpetually out of step with our deepest desires for authentic love and connection. The insidious nature of fear in decision-making is how rarely it announces itself with a grand flourish. It works through subtle suggestion, through a feeling of unease that we attribute to external circumstances, through an overwhelming sense of inertia. It tells us to wait for the perfect moment, knowing that such a moment rarely arrives. It highlights every potential pitfall, every conceivable disaster, eclipsing the possibilities for growth, joy, and transformation. It paints a picture of certainty in stagnation and chaos in change, effectively paralyzing us on the threshold of progress. And the cruelest irony is that in seeking to protect us from discomfort and potential pain, fear often condemns us to a life of quiet desperation, profound regret, and the constant nagging feeling that we are living a fraction of the life we were meant to lead. It steals our future by clinging to a past that no longer serves us, making us prisoners in our own minds. This quiet sabotage, orchestrated by fear, extends far beyond grand life choices, seeping into the mundane fabric of our daily existence. Have you ever found yourself avoiding a new skill? Not because you lack interest, but because the initial awkwardness, the inevitable mistakes, feel too vulnerable. Or perhaps you've stayed silent in a meeting, despite having a valuable insight, out of a fear of being wrong, of being judged, of not being taken seriously. These seemingly small decisions, accumulated over time, erect invisible barriers, slowly but surely confining us within increasingly narrow boundaries of possibility. They are the small surrenders, the incremental sacrifices of our potential, all offered at the altar of perceived safety, a safety often devoid of true vitality. The cost of these seemingly insignificant fears is the gradual erosion of our confidence, the dimming of our unique light, and the quiet despair of a life lived below its true capacity. The truly insidious part of letting fear make our decisions is how it actively distorts our perception of reality. When fear is in the driver's seat, our brain becomes hyper-focused on threats, on potential dangers, often magnifying them far beyond their actual likelihood or severity. The world becomes a more hostile, more unpredictable place. Opportunities are viewed through a lens of risk, rather than potential reward. People are approached with suspicion, rather than openness. This cognitive bias, driven by fear, creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. By constantly anticipating the worst, we often subtly draw it towards us, or at the very least, miss the genuine beauty and potential that surrounds us. It's like wearing a pair of dark, distorting glasses, and then claiming the world itself is dark and menacing, never realizing that the filter is entirely within. Consider the pervasive modern fear of missing out, or FOMO. Driven by a fear of being left behind, of not being enough, or of being excluded, we often make decisions that contradict our true desires. We say yes to social engagements we don't truly want to attend, spend money we don't have on experiences we don't truly value, or endlessly scroll through social media comparing our lives to curated highlight reels. This isn't a pursuit of joy. It's an escape from the fear of being inadequate, of being less than. And in this frantic chase, we often lose touch with what truly nourishes our souls, what truly brings us peace, sacrificing our authentic selves on the altar of a perceived, manufactured belonging. Fear of missing out becomes a fear of missing ourselves. So how do we break free from this insidious cycle? How do we reclaim the reins of our own decision-making? The first, most crucial step is awareness. It begins with consciously recognizing that subtle whisper, that hesitation, that feeling of dread, and asking, is this my authentic intuition guiding me? Or is this fear masquerading as caution? It requires a moment of pause, a deliberate step back before reacting. This pause creates a tiny space, a crack in the armor of fear, allowing us to examine the thought or feeling, rather than immediately submitting to its command. It's about becoming a keen observer of our own internal landscape, watching the thoughts and emotions arise without immediately identifying with them or being controlled by them. This awareness then leads to interrogation. Once you've identified the presence of fear, the next step is to question it. What exactly am I afraid of? What is the worst-case scenario, truly? And how likely is that scenario to actually happen? Is this a rational fear based on concrete evidence? Or is it an echo from a past wound, an old story my brain is trying to replay? Often, when we bring these fears into the light of conscious scrutiny, their power begins to dissipate. The monstrous shadow in the dark often shrinks to a manageable size when examined under the lamp of logic and honest self-assessment. We might realize that the fear of public speaking isn't about the words themselves, but about a long-forgotten moment of childhood embarrassment. The fear of starting a new project isn't about the project, but about the deeply ingrained fear of not being good enough. The next powerful step is to consciously reframe the narrative. Fear thrives on negative possibilities, on what if I fail? We must deliberately shift that internal monologue to, what if I succeed? What if I learn something invaluable? What if this challenge strengthens me? It's about consciously choosing to focus on the potential for growth, for discovery, for joy, rather than dwelling solely on the potential for pain. This isn't naive optimism. It's a strategic act of mental reprogramming, a conscious effort to balance the primal brain's threat detection system with the higher brain's capacity for vision and possibility. It's about remembering that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision that something else is more important than fear itself. This act of reframing, of consciously shifting our internal dialogue, is a muscle that strengthens with practice. It's about deliberately seeking out the what if it goes right scenarios, visualizing the positive outcomes, and grounding ourselves in the belief that even if things don't go exactly as planned, we possess the resilience and resourcefulness to navigate the challenges. This isn't about ignoring risk. It's about balancing risk assessment with opportunity recognition, refusing to let the potential for pain overshadow the potential for profound growth and genuine fulfillment. We begin to see that the journey itself, with all its uncertainties and missteps, is often where the real treasures of experience and self-knowledge are found. Another potent strategy for stop letting fear make your decisions is to deliberately expose ourselves to the very things we fear, in small, manageable doses. This is the principle behind exposure therapy, which has been remarkably effective in treating phobias. If you have a fear of public speaking, for example, instead of immediately signing up for a major presentation, start by speaking up more in small group discussions. Then practice presenting to a trusted friend. Then to a slightly larger, more formal setting. Each small victory builds confidence, slowly eroding the power of the fear. Each step forward, however tiny, sends a powerful message to your primal brain. This isn't as dangerous as you thought. I can handle this. It's a gentle, persistent push against the boundaries of your comfort zone, expanding it little by little, until what once felt terrifying becomes merely challenging, or even exciting. This gradual, intentional exposure forces us to confront the often exaggerated narratives fear has built around certain situations. We discover that the judgment we feared might not materialize, or if it does, it's far less devastating than anticipated. We learn that failure isn't the end, but a valuable lesson. We experience firsthand that vulnerability, while uncomfortable, often leads to deeper connection, not rejection. Each successful encounter with a feared situation rewires our neural pathways, creating new, more empowering associations, and weakening the old, restrictive ones. It's an active process of rewriting the internal script that fear has been dictating for far too long. Furthermore, we must cultivate a powerful sense of self-compassion in this journey. Confronting fear is not about brute forcing our way through it, or shaming ourselves for feeling it. It's about approaching our anxieties with kindness and understanding. Remember, fear's original intent was to protect us. So, when it arises, acknowledge it. Even thank it for trying to keep you safe. But then gently assert your conscious choice. Say to yourself, I hear you, fear, and I understand you're trying to protect me. But I've weighed the risks, and I'm choosing to move forward anyway. I've got this. This internal dialogue shifts the dynamic from being a victim of fear to being an empowered individual who acknowledges its presence, but refuses to be controlled by it. Self-compassion allows us to be patient with ourselves, understanding that overcoming deep-seated fears is a process, not a single event. The liberation that comes from truly making your own decisions, rather than letting fear choose for you, is profound. It's not just about what you do, it's about who you become. You become an individual defined by courage, by curiosity, by an unwavering commitment to your own growth and authentic expression. The quiet ache of regret, the haunting melody of "what if," begins to fade, replaced by the vibrant symphony of a life fully lived, rich with experience, learning, and genuine joy. The boundaries of your world expand, revealing possibilities you once thought were unreachable. You begin to trust your own inner compass, knowing that even when the path is unclear, you have the inner resources to navigate it. This journey of overcoming fear as the primary decision maker is not a one-time battle, but an ongoing practice. Fear will always be a part of the human experience, a primal echo in our modern lives. But our relationship with it can fundamentally change. It can transition from being a stern, controlling master to a distant, well-meaning advisor whose counsel we consider, but ultimately do not blindly obey. We learn to listen to its warnings without allowing them to dictate our every move. We learn to discern between real danger and imagined threats, between genuine caution and paralyzing anxiety. The ultimate reward is not the absence of fear, but the presence of true freedom. Freedom to choose the daring path, to speak your truth, to pursue your passions, to connect deeply, and to live a life that is authentically yours. It is the freedom to embrace uncertainty as an adventure, failure as a teacher, and vulnerability as a pathway to strength. So, the next time that familiar whisper of apprehension arises, pause, listen. Then, remember that you and only you hold the ultimate power to decide who you will be and what path your life will truly take. This journey of re-establishing self-governance, of actively choosing courage over comfort, profoundly alters the very fabric of our being. When we consistently choose to act despite fear, we build a new neural pathway, a mental muscle that learns to associate action with positive outcomes, even if those outcomes involve temporary discomfort or failure. We begin to see failure not as a definitive end, but as valuable feedback, a necessary stepping stone on the path to mastery. This fundamental shift in perspective liberates us from the paralysis of perfectionism and the dread of imperfection, allowing us to engage with life more fully, more experimentally, and with a far greater sense of adventure. Consider the ripple effect this has on our creativity and innovation. Fear is the ultimate enemy of new ideas. It tells us our idea isn't original enough, that it's too risky, that it will be ridiculed. When we learn to quiet that voice, suddenly, the world opens up as a canvas for our unique contributions. The artist picks up the brush. The writer begins the first draft. The entrepreneur launches the unconventional venture. These acts, born of a deliberate choice to override fear, unleash a torrent of potential that was previously locked away. The world benefits not just from the individual's courage, but from the new perspectives, solutions, and beauty they bring forth. The absence of fear as a decision maker doesn't just change one life. It subtly, yet powerfully, shifts the collective landscape of human possibility. Furthermore, this newfound mastery over fear's influence impacts our legacy. What kind of life story do we wish to tell? One filled with what-ifs and regrets, dictated by the shadows of apprehension? Or one vibrant with bold choices, profound experiences, and the courage to pursue our authentic self, even when the path was uncertain? The choices we make today, in the face of fear, are the chapters we write in the book of our lives. By choosing courage, by choosing growth, by choosing authenticity, we craft a narrative that not only enriches our own existence, but also inspires those around us. We become a beacon, a quiet testament to the fact that fear, though powerful, is not insurmountable. The final piece of this transformative puzzle is the understanding that community and connection are not just external supports, but powerful antidotes to fear's isolating grip. When we dare to share our fears, to articulate our anxieties to trusted friends, mentors, or even therapists, we discover a profound truth. We are not alone. Our fears, though they feel deeply personal, are often universal. This shared human experience normalizes our struggles, provides external perspective, and offers the strength of collective encouragement. Leaning on others, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable in the face of fear, paradoxically makes us stronger, demonstrating that courage isn't always a solitary act, but often a deeply communal one. The very act of reaching out is a decision made in defiance of fear, a choice for connection over isolation. So, the call to stop letting fear make your decisions is not an easy one, nor is it an instantaneous transformation. It is a continuous practice, a lifelong commitment to self-awareness, self-compassion, and unwavering courage. It is about understanding that the purpose of life is not to avoid discomfort or eliminate risk, but to engage with it fully, to learn from it, and to grow through it. It is about recognizing that your truest self, your deepest potential, often lies just beyond the boundary that fear tries to draw for you. Every single day, countless small decisions are placed before you. Will you choose the path of comfort, dictated by the whispers of apprehension? Or will you pause, interrogate the fear, reframe the narrative, and choose the path of growth, purpose, and genuine freedom? The power to choose has always been yours. It's time to reclaim it. It's time to live a life that is truly, authentically, courageously yours. Don't let fear dictate your destiny any longer.